everybody, and welcome to the Sports Star. Today we are going to be doing some college football, you could call them hot takes, and I am joined today by my podcast co-host. Let's get into it.
Yes.
So first thing I want to talk about, we have Cincinnati in all likelihood out of the playoffs, and Michigan probably not. I'd say Michigan's probably not making it back with
Certainly.
Ohio State being strong in that conference. And Michigan State being strong, I don't think they make it back either.
You've lost several key players on defense too.
Especially on defense, yeah. But who fills in that gap? So, in all likelihood, Ohio State, who has a very strong roster this year, with and probably, if you're not the best quarterback in college, definitely the second best.
Yeah.
And just a generally strong lineup, especially a wide receiver with Jackson Smith in the Java. And Marvin Harrison Jr. there. So that's 3 of the spots filled. Who do you think is making it to number 4?
Oh, that's going to be tough. I mean, you got to narrow it down. So you got Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. The 4th one could be A&M.
Yeah, the only problem with A&M is the fact that they're in the conference with Georgia and Alabama. I don't think it makes any sense for the selection committee to make 3 teams from the same conference make it through, because at least one of them's not playing in the conference championship game.
I think you got to take into consideration, minus the fact that their QB is really young, Texas.
Yeah.
Texas, like, the potential for Texas is so high. Like, they're getting all these good recruits, and I think I really like the coaching staff there. I think Texas should be a top contender from years to come, but I think you can't count them out.
Yeah, the only problem I can really see with Texas is the fact that a lot of those new recruits that came when the wave of recruits that's recently hit with the whole Arch Manning situation.
They're just so young.
They just haven't come through yet. Like, they're all Manning's class, and
oh yeah, that's true.
Maybe a few for next season, but most of those have not come through yet. But I do agree that they are a very strong roster. I like Quinn Ewers in his second year in college, and Bijan Robinson's honestly the best running back in the country right now.
So you have elite offense, or you have a good elite running back. You got a quarterback who should, in several years, be top 10. Like, honestly, top 10.
Yeah, the potential is definitely there for Texas. One of the other teams I want to bring into consideration is USC. So they're one of the teams that have been kind of at the forefront of the whole NIL deal, and they have brought in a lot of talent this year between new quarterback Caleb Williams, coach Lincoln Riley, and wide receiver recruit
from Pitt,
transferring from Pitt, Jordan Addison. They're definitely a really strong team that should be competing now. Honestly, like they've put a lot into their team for it to not work.
They're in win now, though.
Definitely. And if they don't make it this year, they need to. I think Lincoln Riley needs to make it within the next 3, just simply because of the sheer amount of talent on that roster. And it's already a talented roster, even before you add all the stuff. Just with it being one of the most well-known teams in California, which is a hub for recruiting. Always, it should be dominating at least the Pac-12, if not the entire country. They should be competing soon.
Yeah.
So moving on a bit. Every year, especially recently, we've seen at least one quarterback come from either late round or a couple times not even drafted conversations to top, at least a first round pick, sometimes in the case of a guy like Joe Burrow, number 1 overall picks. Who will that be this year? I mean, obviously you got guys like Jake Hayner out of Fresno State, who showed talent last year. Spencer Rattler, even though he's not as unknown as some of the other guys, he's definitely kind of falling off of a lot of draft boards with last season. But he's still a very talented quarterback. And then also a little less unknown, Hendon Hooker, the quarterback from University of Tennessee, who showed very highly last year and is my dark horse pick for the Heisman this year. So, any other guys you want to bring up that could be in contention for a high round selection?
Yeah, like you mentioned Hooker. I think he has good potential in Tennessee. The only problem is, like, recent years, you haven't really seen many big name quarterbacks come out of Tennessee. Like, is it the
Manning? It's been since Manning.
Yeah, it's been since Manning. There hasn't been do they not have the coaching staff? Do they not have, like, I don't know, like, they just don't have the players to, like, win. They have good players. They just don't have a winning team. I don't know.
Yeah, it's been rough. It's been rough, but
yeah.
Last year they took a massive step forward, competing in a bowl game against Purdue. Going to a different point I wanted to make. Could we see a rejuvenated rivalry between UT and Florida? Because I think both teams have very, very high ceilings this year. I especially like Florida's quarterback room with Anthony Richardson. I think he is. I mean, he's not as much of a dark horse as he has been. I've seen him go as high as top 10 in multiple mock drafts, but he's gonna be. I think he is a very real candidate for taking that big step forward this year.
Yeah.
I think having a good rivalry between UT and Florida is never a bad thing for college football as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really seen much rivalry since. I mean, Tennessee is not good.
Tennessee has been definitely
been
down in the ditches for a while.
Yeah.
And handed out McDonald's bags full of money to recruits. Yeah, that's legal now, though. Anyways, another point I wanted to make. We have the top two quarterbacks in the draft more or less firmed up with C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young.
Although you can never count out anyone.
Can't count out anybody, but
anytime, because we learned last year, we thought Sam Howell and Spencer Rattler would be the top 2 picks last year. They end up, one doesn't even get drafted and stays another year in college. The other one drops to the 5th round. So it's kind of crazy how stuff like that can change in a season.
Yeah, I remember sitting here probably about a year ago now, comparing the two on Take With You, but I do think these guys are as firm of a lock as you can get at this point to be at least top 3.
Especially
picks.
Bryce Young.
Bryce Young, and I really do think Bryce Young is. I mean, they're very different quarterbacks, but at least height-wise, they are very, very similar this year. But furthermore, number 3 is very, very much up in the air. I've seen Will Levis, I've seen a lot. As I said earlier, Anthony Richardson's there a lot. I've seen Tyler Van Dyke being mentioned a few times, which I don't hate, but I also not as high on as some other people I've talked to about this. So, who are you thinking for the third quarterback off the board? Or not even the third quarterback off the board. Who's going to be the third best quarterback for this draft?
Levis. My opinion, it's Levis.
Yeah, and that's why I think that's kind of become the consensus. Him, the Kentucky signal caller.
I think Hooker has a good year. I think Levis, though, will end up, despite having no, real, he's not going to be able to win with Kentucky, let's be real. No. But he can show flashes, and that's kind of like what happened in Malik Willis. He didn't have a great team, but he showed flashes of greatness and that's how he got drafted.
And especially in the SEC of all places, NFL teams aren't always going to be looking for high-level success because that's being dominated by specifically Alabama, but there is
Corral,
usually,
for example.
Yeah, Corral, for example, never really had an amazing, never was a real playoff contender with Ole Miss, but was always I've seen multiple drafts and put him in the first round before he fell to the 5th. Yeah. So
wait, Corral?
Yeah, Corral.
He went third round.
Not third round. Yeah. Oh yeah. That was to the Panthers.
Yeah.
But one more point I want to make, going back to the Lincoln Riley at USC. There was 2 other pretty major coaching changes that came out more or less out of the blue between Lincoln Riley to Brian Kelly to LSU and Mario Cristobal to Miami. Those 2 appeared out of nowhere, and have been met with mixed reactions, may I say, by the fans of the various teams. With various teams calling them traitors and the other teams calling them heroes. But out of the three of the big transfer coaches, who do you think is going to be the best this year? Lincoln Riley at USC, Mario Cristobal at Miami, Brian Kelly at LSU. Which one of those three do you think is going to live up to the hype surrounding them the best?
You go up, Brian Kelly. I think Brian Kelly can do some great things in LSU. I think he has the talent there.
LSU is definitely a talent and should be a talented team with BJ Ojolari on the edge, and Jacqueline Roy on the defensive line.
Yeah, but I don't think you can count off UNC or USC because. Wait, did you say UNC? Or
USC.
Yeah, USC. You can't count them off this year with the potential they have. So.
And so another point about these new coaches and new places, is this something we'll see more of high-level coaches? And Brian Kelly was one of the most successful coaches in the country. Lincoln Riley made Oklahoma a constant contender, and so did Mario Cristobal at Oregon. Is something we'll see more. High-level coaches at schools that maybe aren't... Notre Dame, Oregon, Oklahoma. Especially Notre Dame and Oregon. Oklahoma is always going to be the playoff talk, but Notre Dame and Oregon aren't going to get the same level of recruits as LSU and Miami, just simply because of where they are. California and Florida are two of the biggest California and Louisiana are two of the biggest hotbeds of recruits in the entire country, let alone.
And you got to take into consideration the competition you're going to get.
Exactly.
Because Notre Dame and Oregon don't get. They're both. Well, Oregon's in Pac-12
For now.
And then Notre Dame, you don't know where they're going to be. So.
Yeah, and it is definitely a who they'll be able to play with. Because the recruits you're going to get at LSU. There was a lot of talk, ended up not coming to anything, but there was a lot of talk about Arch staying in Louisiana, playing there. There's always high-level recruits in Louisiana. There's always going to be high-level recruits in California, but at Notre Dame you have to basically have to recruit the whole country. You can't just focus on your own area. You have to focus the entire country, try and pick out from whatever. And Notre Dame is not the most best looking place for recruits to go. There's compared to some of these other schools, you're not gonna probably get the same NIL deals at Notre Dame that you're gonna get at LSU. You're not gonna be able to. I'm not saying this is the sole reason why any recruit would go to a school, but you're not gonna be able to get the same status at Notre Dame as you do at Miami.
Right.
Just football isn't as held in as high a regard as it is at some of these other schools.
Big football schools. I'm not saying Notre Dame isn't a football school, but I don't remember the last big recruit that came out of Notre Dame, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I can name one big name recruit coming out of that.
No.
But as for LSU,
there's always somebody coming out of Louisiana.
Every single year, there's always one person.
At least one. Bare minimum, there's gonna be somebody coming out of Louisiana. Usually, there's a couple high-level recruits, and honestly, they're more likely to pick LSU than any other
SEC.
Any other school, really, because you're saying that you got to compete at a high level, the highest level in college football, with the SEC.
You have a good fan base.
You're gonna have a massive fan base at They've got one of the better stadiums in the country. They got
great
amazing atmosphere, great culture. So they're looking at that as I can just stay within state, which is always a bonus for a lot of these players, just being able to stay close to home, not having to. If your family wants to see your games, you don't have to take a plane ride across country. So yeah, I think
it's either there or Alabama, LSU, Alabama, both.
Yeah,
always have someone.
So one more point I want to make about this, in general, with these division shakeups, which if you've been paying even the slightest bit of attention to college football, you've almost undoubtedly heard about right now. How will this affect recruiting? Because it's going to. I mean, without a doubt, there's going to be recruits that are going to go to one school that are not going to go to a different school just because simply they're playing in a different conference. I mean, there's going to be more money in the SEC than any other division just because it's the most dominant division ever. Right? Plain and simple. I mean, you got two. You can count on at least one team making it from that every single year.
Guaranteed.
Usually there's one or two more that are high tier teams. So, do you think that there will be a recruiting change at some of these schools that are no longer? And what you're looking at now is there's the Big, and going into this, there's the Big 10, the Big 12, SEC, ACC, Pac-12. Pac-12 is falling apart, it seems. ACC similarly is not faring too well. And the Big 12 and the SEC are just getting richer. And the Big 10 are just getting richer. SEC's picking up Oklahoma and Texas. Those are two schools that are going to be making a ton of money, and it does mean that Arch Manning, assuming that he stays, and he potentially could be playing against Alabama before he goes. Not every year, but before he goes to the NFL, he'll play a game against Alabama. He'll play a game against LSU. There's a very, very high chance of that. Do you think that this will affect recruiting?
Yeah, because you'll be seeing a bunch of guys switching schools. Like, there's some guys right now in high school who've already committed to teams, and they're seeing less. We'll be seeing less and less competition at the schools they committed to, whose teams switch conferences.
Exactly.
So you're just gonna have to, you'll be seeing a lot of switches.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that, unless you have any other points you want to make,
I think that's covered.
I think that's about it for this video. Thank y'all for watching. Hope y'all have a great day. See ya.